Apparently, Andrew Tate is innocent and also guilty at the same time. So, according to this article by Daily Mail, two women who denied being trafficked by Andrew Tate and his brother and insist they worked for him willingly are victims and have been brainwashed, Romanian judges rule. So I thought this was going to be a pretty interesting article. One, I don't know too much about Andrew Tate. All I really know about Andrew Tate is that his business model is an extremely good business model in that he basically has like a recurring educational service basically that is pretty much like a private Discord server with different courses on it, and he makes I think about like 5-6 million a month from that due to the amount of people subscribe to him. It's kind of like a Netflix for education on various things. Like, I think how to be a better man, how to get dates, how to make money, Shopify, whatever, right? So, two young women who denied being trafficked by Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan did not understand that they were enslaved as they had been brainwashed, a Romanian court has ruled. The two women both claimed that they worked voluntarily for Andrew and Tristan Tate, but a report prepared by a clinical psychologist said they were both left with trauma and did not recognize that they were being exploited. My only question is, what are the credentials of this clinical psychologist? Where did he go to school, etc.? So Andrew Tate, 36, and his brother Tristan, 34, were arrested in December on suspicion of human trafficking, rape, and forming an organized crime group to exploit women. The brothers and their alleged female accomplices, separate from the two outlined in the clinical psychologist's report, appeared at the Bucharest court yesterday where their appeal against the judge's decision to extend their arrest a second time was turned down. And if I remember correctly, I believe one of their female like partners that were arrested was like a former cop in Romania, which I thought was pretty interesting. So the clinical psychologist's assessment was described as extrajudicial evidence, but judges at the Bucharest Court of Appeal did take the report into consideration over yesterday's decision. Let's see. One of the two women was originally from the U.S. and had been attracted to the Romania by Tristan Tate, the court heard. The Romanian prosecutors considered the two women as victims of the Tate brothers despite their claim that they worked voluntarily for the two men. The magistrates took the clinical psychologist's report into account and ruled that they did not speak knowingly and had been brainwashed through their exploitation. The court said this was due to the brothers' recruitment process of making their alleged victims fall in love with them, where they falsely claimed to want a relationship or marriage. Which, by the way, like, I understand that this could be, like, pretty bad, right? But I just find it odd that a court isn't willing to listen to the words of the supposed victims. I think that's like a very odd thing. It's like, wait a minute. So you have victims potentially in this case that you aren't wanting to take their word for what happened in this whole situation. And apparently, I think there's like more videos of these two ladies where they're openly saying on like news channels, live streams, whatnot, that they never claimed to be victims, that they never ever said anything about being a victim or anything like that. They don't even understand why they were even inside the whole lawsuit or something. Like, which you're gonna have to find the videos and whatnot, but like, it's just a really weird thing. Like to me, like just watching from like the outside in, it kind of seems like there's something going on that's very corrupt in Romania, which, funny enough, is apparently one of the reasons why Andrew Tate and his brother were even in Romania in the first place is because they knew how corrupt Romania actually is, because they knew that for the most part they could pretty much almost get away with anything. But there's been a lot of speculation as to why they would end up basically being targeted, and a lot of people are thinking they were open to basically getting targeted because they ended up changing their religion to basically Muslim, or at least Andrew Tate did, whereas Romania is an extremely Christian nation. So that is one speculation, which could be the case, but who knows? So the Romanian court ruled although the named Woman 1 and Woman 2, both in the statements given before the criminal investigation bodies as witnesses and through the authenticated statements given before the notary and submitted by the defense to the case file, denied any form of exploitation on the part of the four defendants, the Collegial Panel of Rights and Freedoms appreciates that these statements do not reflect reality. Which, like, by the way, like, isn't that kind of crazy, right? Say you were to say, let's say that you actually saw like this plane just crash into like a building, right, at this intersection, and so you go to court as a witness to this situation saying, hey, this big plane just crashed into this building at this intersection. I saw the whole thing. This is my written statement, etc., etc., etc. It's been notarized. I confirm that is my statement about what happened. And then basically they go to court and basically say, like, oh, sorry, that's not reality. It's like, I don't know. It just seems kind of crazy to me. It is known that in the case of the lover boy or by falling in love recruitment method, the victims of human trafficking do not always recognize the fact that they were enslaved and exploited and do not cooperate with the judicial bodies attesting to the idea that these activities were carried out voluntarily. Like, and the only problem that I have with this is like I understand them wanting to protect people who have been potentially been exploited, enslaved, etc., or manipulated. But at the same time, if you're a grown adult willingly going into a partnership slash business with another grown adult and you agree to the terms of whatever that agreement is, it might be a sucky situation, but is that really illegal? Like, I don't really know. It just seems like a really odd thing because you literally have some of these supposed victims literally saying that they are not victims, and they went through a very lengthy process to try to prove that they weren't victims, but what they say isn't even being, like, there's like no weight to it in the court. That seems pretty odd. The Tate brothers and their alleged accomplices, Georgiana, I don't know how to pronounce that last name, and Lana Radu, continued to deny any wrongdoing. As Tate was escorted from the Bucharest Court of Appeals with his brother yesterday, besides the alleged female accomplices, he shouted at reporters, "You will find out the truth of this case soon." The self-proclaimed misogynist insisted there was no evidence. He exploited young girls and forced them to create pornographic content on webcams. Ask them for evidence and they will give you none because it doesn't exist. Which, by the way, it just seems really interesting that he said this statement because based off what the court basically did with these witnesses of the alleged victims or alleged some victims, they're not even taking the potential victims' words that nothing happened. It just, I don't know. It'd be such a weird, like, the biggest thing to learn from this situation is one, try to not go to a country that is blatantly corrupt. Two, just because you have money doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to be able to be problem free in your life. So, something to think about. You will find out the truth of this case soon. Following the court's decision yesterday, the four will now remain in custody until February 27th. Romanian prosecutors said the Tate brothers recruited their victims by seducing them and falsely claiming to want a relationship or marriage. Now, again, the thing that I don't really understand, right, is like, wouldn't this be potentially almost any relationship? Because there's so many guys out there that will just say like, "Oh yes, I totally want to be in a relationship with you. I definitely want to marry you. I definitely want to put a ring on your finger." But probably what they're thinking is just to try to get some, right? Like that might be the case. So like, are you going to put every single guy into a situation where now they're going to be in trouble for simply going out there to try to, I guess, sleep around or something? The victims were then taken to properties on the outskirts of the capital, Bucharest, and coerced to produce pornographic content for social media sites that generated large financial gain, prosecutors said. And prosecutors can now ask the courts to extend the suspect's detention for up to 180 days. And this is, again, the thing that I don't really understand about this because I don't think any of the people, the victims, have actually been like named, right? Other than basically the witnesses that came out, but they're not even believing their story when they came out. It's like, hey, we're not even victims. Why are we on here? Because like from some of the videos I've seen of the two witnesses, like they didn't even understand why they were even a part of this weird, basically legal case against Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate, because they never once apparently claimed that they were victims. They never claimed that they were exploited, but yet they were, for some reason, listed on the case against them as some of the members. It's just a really weird situation. The two Tate brothers moved into a converted warehouse in Romania in 2017, which was encircled with armed guards. Now, the funny thing is, I believe that they're not, like, they had their whole thing, I think, surrounded by armed guards, not necessarily because of Romania itself, like the government of Romania, but mainly because they've gotten so popular that now that became like a huge risk. Like if you have like a popularity bigger than basically The Rock, pretty much, that gets into a very dangerous situation, especially if people do not agree with whatever you're saying. Like it could be a really very dangerous situation. So at the safe house on the outskirts of Bucharest, the Tate brothers had a video chat studio where several women were found during a police raid in April 2022. Prosecutors claimed their brothers lured women into the studio where they were sexually exploited through acts of physical violence and mental coercion through intimidation, constant supervision, control, and invocation of alleged debts, and made to produce and share pornographic material. Andrew Tate is also accused of raping a Moldovan woman who he alleges followed him from London in March 2022, which he categorically denies. Now, here's the thing. I don't know if the people who, like the other people other than the two witnesses that came forward, I don't know if the other people, the other alleged victims, are true victims or not. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what ends up actually happening out of this whole thing. Feel free to give your thoughts. I just find it interesting to see a corrupt government that's openly and blatantly corrupt, where a individual with extremely high net worth and a lot of attention goes there, lives there because of how corrupt of a nation Romania actually is, and he believes that pretty much he could basically get away with a lot of things in there if you know who to like talk to, who you could end up basically paying for. The only problem is that's like a double-edged sword, which we now see because basically, okay, so you got a lot of money, you got a lot of attention, you got a lot of connections, you move to this country that's very corrupt where you could basically grease the cogs in the wheel. The only problem is those same cogs on the wheel can be greased and then spun the opposite direction against you. So, to me, if you're someone basically in Andrew Tate's position where you are making a lot of money and you have a lot of attention, maybe don't go somewhere where the country is blatantly corrupt. Maybe move to a country that simply aligns with your viewpoint or aligns in a legal sense to where you will be protected, or at the very least, you know that they're just more aligned, naturally speaking, with your viewpoint. Like, that's the way that I would go about it. Like, I don't understand why you would want to go to an extremely corrupt country because, again, that's just a double edged sword. Let's see some of these comments. Sounds like an establishment stitch up. Let's see. Another incel losing his ever loving mind that his creep boy hero is finally being called to account. Let's see. Not at all. I think he's an arrogant sod, but you are off your head if you read that headline and don't think it screams set up. This is the thing. Like, I just find it pretty disgusting that the court is not willing to take into account really the like not putting any weight to some of the people on the whole alleged victim side. Like, they're not even garnering that any weight to their decisions. Let's see. This has all the hallmarks of a stitch up by the woke left wing. Let's see. There's a reason you're average. There are 6 victims. You don't get to discount the other 4 who may have witnessed what happened to the 2 alleged victims, not to mention the victims from 2015. The women have publicly done a video statement saying they are not victims. Let's see. What about the videos he posts about abusing women? I believe there was like a video that was released a while ago where it seemed like Andrew Tate was basically beating a girl. But that same girl basically came out afterwards and said that was rough play and they were just into it. It's like a role playing thing, which, if that's what gets your rocks off, whatever. So this is the only problem with like the whole social media thing, especially like specifically with Andrew Tate. It's just like a constant like clips. Like, he's pretty much pure clips. And people take that either good, bad, indifferent, crazy, whatever. But again, this is the thing. Like, who knows what happened with the other 4 alleged victims? I don't know. They might have been truly victimized. I have no idea. I just think it's weird that the 2 women who came out aren't getting any weight to what they're saying. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Interesting. Feel free to give your thoughts on this. But again, the main reason why I wanted to cover this is that like it kind of goes to show you that, one, depending on where you live, and regardless if you have money or not, more money in a very corrupt government won't necessarily save you. Basically meaning money isn't everything.